Hello, welcome to the LIT Series, the leadership program at Clark International University. My name is Dr. Rose Clark Nanyonga, and I'm the Vice Chancellor for the university. Today, I'm really excited to host my father, Dr. Ian Clark, also the founder and promoter of Clark International University. So, welcome, Dr. Clark.
Thank you, Rose.
To the
Vice
series,
Chancellor?
yes. So that when we look at your CV,
Yes.
it's a bit shocking.
Sorry. Sorry.
That you have done so much. So just for our audience to get a little bit of a teaser, you are the founder and board member of Chuoko Hospital. You are the chairman of Uganda Healthcare Federation, the chairman of Clark Group, which has several companies in that, including the university, Clark Junior School, Seasons Lodge in Zanzibar, International Medical Center Juba, the Vineyard, Clark Farm, to mention but a few, right? You are also the founder and chairman of International Medical Group Uganda, the founder, Clark International University, as we mentioned, and you had a 5-year stint as a mayor of Makindi Division.
Okay.
Right? Congratulations. Well, we could go on and on. So clearly you are a very well-established leader. But I want to start the conversation not from where you are at, but where you started. Okay, because we don't suddenly wake up in the morning and, accomplish everything that you have accomplished. So tell us a little bit. You have a lot of experience. You have unique challenges, unique experiences that have shaped your leadership journey. What have been some of those key experiences?
You know what they say, as they say, I was born at a very early age. That's why I've been able to accomplish a lot.
Well, we can start there.
But I actually have to say that when I was a teenager, I wanted, I felt what I would do as a career was medicine. And the reason for that was because I had grown up on a farm, and my father died, I think I was 9. So I had to do quite a bit of the farm work. So I could have gone on to be a farmer, and I liked farming, driving the tractor. And
clearly.
That's, I've gone back to that in my later years.
Yeah.
But I also, I suppose, as a young person, had a desire to make a difference to the world. And I thought that doing medicine would be something that would be a portable career that I could take with me wherever I was. Yeah. And that's as it's proved. I started off my medical career as a general practitioner in Ireland. I fairly quickly, I must say, got a bit bored with it. And then that restlessness led me to come to Uganda many years ago when I founded Chuoko Hospital. And I want to say something about restlessness, because I think restlessness is not, it isn't given people should give restlessness more credit, because restlessness can drive you on to do more stuff. They say godliness with contentment is great gain. Yes, but if you're too contented, you won't really do anything, will you?
You won't pursue anything. You'll be challenged to pursue something.
You're not challenged to pursue stuff.
Yeah.
One of the issues with Ugandans is they're actually too content. If you take Kenyans, compare Kenyans to Ugandans. The thing with Kenyans is they don't have a lot of land. A lot of their land is desert and so on. So if Kenyans don't strive and work, they literally won't eat. But for a lot of Ugandans, even though we have this huge population, if they just, they say, I was in the village, I was there seated. It's all passive.
Right.
And and if you take even, what we come across in the hospital, it has refused the machine. It's passive. Everything's passive. Right. And so people allow things to happen to them, allow life to happen to them, and they get by. They get their food, and and they're generally, Uganda's rated as very happy people. So the value of
there's an advantage to that.
There's an advantage in the sense
Definitely.
that you've got a large poverty-stricken population who are basically somehow getting by. But if you're aspirational, if you're restless and you're not satisfied with what you're doing, then it can have the effect of driving you on to the next thing.
Right.
So I've always probably been the sort of kind of person where there's another hill to climb. It's like going over the ruins always, and it keeps going.
Yeah.
And I suppose in a way I haven't, even at this stage of my life, haven't really lost that. And the other thing that I think keeps me going, and it's actually particularly at this stage of my life, is I want to understand, I want to know, I want to learn more. I haven't arrived, I don't know everything.
How come you are able to sustain that passion for growth when so many other people would probably already have felt like, I've accomplished so much, there's nothing more to accomplish?
It's nice to look back and say, oh look, I've done this and this. Fine, that's great. But looking back, the more you can look back on means the older you are and the closer you are to the end game. and therefore, that if you're looking at, when you watch that thing and a video on YouTube and the little line moves toward the end, my little line's getting closer to the end,
right.
and that bit therefore becomes more valuable. It's important how I use that time. And I think, sometimes I ask myself, well, so Ian, why are you still very active? Why am I still maybe I'm a bit less restless than I used to be, but I think probably still restless.
Still quite driven.
Yes. And I then sort of say to myself, well, it's because I still want to enjoy and get the most out of life. When I get up this morning at alarm went off at 5:30. And I got up and went out in the dark and ran for 6 kilometers. Because it's, well, for one thing, to get out early in the morning before the traffic has really started and run along and just hear the sound of my feet on the road and and feel the quietness is actually something very satisfying. And then along with that, there's that bit of discipline that is required. Right. And I find sometimes I'm active, and then I take a I back up and reflect and say, is this what I want to be doing? Right. And a lot of the time I think it is. I do enjoy what I'm doing. I love going up to the farm. I love seeing the coffee grow. Yeah. I love making changes. Like I had on the farm. Let me talk about the farm because you're familiar with other things, but maybe not so much the farm. So the farm's it's a big piece of land that I bought, and part of that land I put in coffee. Now, I started that about 4 to 5 years ago, and I knew zero about coffee. And so I had to learn and educate myself about coffee. Right, yeah.
And you're quite passionate about it, I might say, because the majority of our conversation these days is about the farm and the coffee.
Good. Because you see, coffee is a big deal for Ugandans. I think it's I don't know if it's our biggest export, but I think it could well be the biggest export. And we export about 5 million bags of coffee, which is quite a lot of coffee. And there was this goal to do 20 million bags, but whatever way you put it, it's a large part of Uganda's export.
The economy,
and what's driving the economy, and it's, anyone who has a shamba has a few coffee trees or coffee bushes and harvest coffee. So I got into this thing. I got this piece of land, and we've heard, Uganda's the pearl of Africa. This is a very fertile land. Just throw out your seeds and they grow, and all that kind of thing. And I thought, let me buy this land and then do a sort of proof of concept of what works and what doesn't work. And I've tried. I've got eggs, I have chickens, I've got motoki, I've got
goats.
Goats, and so on, and I've got trees. And of what I've got so far, the things that really work are the trees and the coffee, and the coffee's much more exciting. I mean, the trees I can watch them grow, but there's not much else I can do. But the coffee I can really cultivate it. And I found that as I have learned about coffee, surrounded myself with good people, really just, I mean, what I did at first, I heard there was this big coffee farm in Mabende. And a lot of us, myself, Sean, I think Sean was with me that time, we just rocked up in this big coffee estate and said, okay, we want to know about coffee. I didn't know anybody. We just got out of the car, and said, tell us about coffee. And they were so good and helped us. It's Kawere Coffee Estate, and still to this day have just been such a model for us. And now my coffee is yielding way beyond what the normal farmer gets, and higher quality, higher prices, higher yields, everything. And to me this is important because it's not just for me. This can be a different model for Uganda. And a couple of weeks ago we were at this Nzuri Expo, and the Minister of not Education, the Minister of Agriculture came, and he was absolutely amazed, by what we were doing.
Came to the farm.
He didn't come to the farm, but we had a video of the farm. We had this kind of display. The President came as well, but for the Minister of Agriculture, it was really an eye opener. And if we can do stuff, I mean, it can be simply growing coffee, but if we can do stuff that can really actually make a difference in terms of development, in terms of people's lives, in terms of their income, in terms of their education, then, it's something worthwhile.
And I think that's where I want to take the conversation, because my next question really is, you've talked a little bit about how sometimes Ugandans, in comparison to Kenyans, could be a bit more content. I have to tell our audiences, I am not content.
Definitely not.
But what is the biggest leadership challenge for Uganda? Because even with the farm example, you are demonstrating leadership there, innovation and transformation, how farming could be done differently. You're getting better results there, with what you've put in. So what is our challenge, and how do we therefore, as you know, the mission of the university is to prepare young leaders, to prepare students for global leadership, and for those students to be catalysts for transformation. So what is the leadership challenge in Uganda, and how do we enable young people to be able to solve that gap?
See, the challenge for leadership in Uganda is people like position, and they like the title. They like the position, but they don't necessarily lead. Just because I have the title of CEO or Vice Chancellor or Minister or whatever doesn't make me a leader. But people here feel that if I attain the position, if I get the qualification, I get the piece of paper that says I have a certificate in leadership, and then I then get on people look for government appointments to lead this or that body, and then I'm a leader. Well, no, you've got a position, and we see how much people value positions. We only need to go to a wedding, and then see how everybody has to be recognized for their title, their position, and it's kind of and that was a bit of a foreign thing. I mean, foreign to me, one of the things that is good about being an Irish Ugandan is that you don't take everything in the culture as normal. And you kind of look at things and reflect on things, and some things are good and some things are not so good. And I think we have too many positions, too many titles, and not enough leaders. And so, if you want to be a leader, you need to lead. And you lead by example. You lead by doing the thing. You lead by exposing yourself. You cannot lead from behind. When you look at leaders, if you look at some of the great generals and so on, they led their troops. They were there. Many of the the Roman leaders had a very short life expectancy because they were right there.
Working
they were right there. Very, very few of those guys died in their beds. So that's an extreme example, but so how do you lead? By just getting a title, getting a car, getting a big office and a big desk. You have a nice big desk here, but
I do indeed.
But you have to lead. You have to lead. You have to put yourself out there, and leadership is, to go to the sort of biblical thing, leadership is also servitude. and you lead. If you're a doctor and you're going to lead, you're going to have to serve. You're going to have to serve those patients.
Right.
That's the first thing I told my staff. When I came to Chuoko all those years ago, in fact, where I first met you,
Yes.
but I remember telling, I was a bit appalled by some of the nurses I met, because I used to go out on outreaches with Mengo Hospital nurses, and this was way back in the late 80s. And some of them were really rough with the peasants, with the local people. And I thought, but it doesn't matter, even if I'm a professional nurse, professional doctor, and you are just supposedly just a peasant or whatever, we have to treat you with respect. We've got to treat you with compassion. We've got to find out, we've got to serve you. And that's what I loved about, if you remember Grace Basinji, Grace Basinji was so good to the patients. She was so empathetic to them and so on. And then that, so I don't think you can lead without serving. And I don't think you can lead without sacrifice. I sound like a preacher, don't I?
No, but I mean, I think those components of leadership are some of the things that we would like to be able to deconstruct, because I think that when young people do not have access to and the visibility of those kinds of leaders, they have no other way to demonstrate the kind of leadership you're talking about, because what is around them, they are modeling what they see, and therefore it perpetuates that level of brokenness and so on. And I think what we would like to be able to achieve at this university is not simply, talk about this is what good leadership should look like, but find ways in which young people begin to demonstrate that before they are actually out of here. And I would like to hear more about what are the grounding ideas of how that happens. And you just mentioned a few things here. You have to do.
Yes, and you have to lead.
You have to lead. There is a distinction between having a title, a position, and actually, leading and influencing people. And that's really important for people to hear, I believe. We have been graduating a lot of students from Clark International University over the last 11 years. More than 2,500 students now have graduated. Majority of them healthcare providers, because that was the background of the university. What do you think, as the universities continue to rethink the way we deliver the education and the way we tool young people, what do you think needs to happen collaboratively to ensure that, because you know what, Dr. Ian, I could produce a good graduate, right? But if they go into the work environment and they find an established way of doing things and practice. So what do you think needs to happen therefore in practice as well as in the education setting to be able to prepare people for good leadership?
That's an interesting question, because when you go into an environment, do you change it or does it change you?
Exactly.
It's actually a bit of both. Your environment definitely, I have noticed being in Uganda all these years. I mean, some would say, oh, you're more Ugandan now. Yeah, because your environment does affect you. But I think you always have to, ask the question. You need to do what I said I did earlier. You need to reflect on things sometimes, and not just become a product of your environment. You must be able to change it. And I think we need people who do things. I read an interesting book actually by the guy who wrote The Black Swan, he thinks outside the box. And he said one of his profound things that he said in that book was that doers should be teachers. And teachers should be doers. I think that's what it was. But anyway, that's basically the idea. You get people who teach you things, but they've never done it.
Right, yes.
And so it's in this realm of theory.
Yes.
And one of the biggest issues we have in Uganda is the dichotomy between theory and practice. And we think if we've learned something, though we've learned it, we can put it out in the exam. But you find that people who have learned things can't even practice them. Nurses who've learned how to make beds. I mean, remember a long time ago when the beds, hospitals didn't have sheets in the beds, but the nurses were taught how to fold the bed. But then you said, have you ever made a bed? No, but I've been told how to do it.
Right.
And that's a sort of extreme example. But we need people who do things, and then they're the ones who teach. But we've got a lot too many people who are theorists and who are teaching how to be a leader, how to do this and how to do that. They're not the doers. I don't know, did I answer your question? I think I got off the point.
I think so. Well, I'm asking really, you are on the right path.
Yeah.
What should institutions, both education and in practice, really do to be able to produce good leaders? Because like I said, I could train people very well and simulate, good behaviors and so on. Yeah. They enter into practice and then they are shaped by that practice. Yeah. And so how do we work collaboratively to be able to do that? I think that...
by the way, you must have the mindset where you're prepared to go against the tide.
Right.
You're prepared to stick with it.
You're
prepared to be...
something.
Yes, exactly. You're prepared to be the honest person. You're prepared, even if everybody... But this is how it's done in government. Like you go into government institutions and people hang their coat on the back of the chair and then go off and do their own thing.
Right.
And people say, well, this is just how it is. If you're going to be sane, you're going to have to get like everybody else. But why? What you need to do is change that. If you know that practice is wrong, I've heard that people in procurement, they go into government because that's where the money is, because you can procure and then you procure a percentage for yourself and so on. But if you're honest in procurement, you can make a name for yourself because you're so much against what everybody else does.
Right. Yeah.
So it's the people who will be of strong enough character to you don't have to be obnoxious.
Right. Yeah.
But you just need to be a strong enough character to say, well, this is what I feel I should do, and I'm really going to go and do this.
Right.
An awful lot of things too. When I say about the doing, a lot of the things that I've done in leadership I have not been leading anyone when I started them. When I started Chioco, I remember we had that old Land Rover. Used to drive it like this in a straight line, and so and I was the one going to collect these old cement blocks to build the foundations of the hospital. Yeah. Really, didn't have anybody to lead. I was doing. Okay, and then subsequently...
But people started following you.
People started following.
And coming around you and buying into the vision of what you are doing.
Yeah. That's another thing, by the way. You need to be clear-headed and have a vision. Like in the farm, I might not have started knowing exactly what I was doing, but I started saying, does this farming, can it really make a difference? In Uganda, a huge percentage of our people live off the land, 70% or something like that. So it's a very important sector, agribusiness. And after I stepped down as CEO of the hospital, then I had more time, and we said, well, let's develop the education side and the agribusiness side, because those are such formative. Agribusiness because it provides so much income for people, and education because you can change people's attitudes. Right. And how did I do it? I just did it. You just do it. And usually in the early stages of those things, there's nobody cheering you. People are wondering, what's he doing?
That's true. Yeah, because I think also, a lot of us, want to be cheered on, and you want that affirmation that that you're doing the right thing. But I think it's really important for us to hear your story, in that majority of the things that you have started, you didn't always have a team around you. You didn't have 1,000 people running IHK. I remember when International Medical Center started, it was you, me, and one lab technician.
Yeah. Well, we didn't even have the lab technician when we started.
Oh, actually, that's true. We
tests.
did all the tests and so on.
Yeah.
But I think it's always good for people to understand the spectrum of that growth and do how that gap for us in Uganda to be able to close that. Yeah. More people, we need a critical mass of people who think that way, who actually continue to push that envelope, who are disruptors, who are asking the right questions, but are also actually doing things. Yeah. They have the skills, they
believe in what they're doing.
And they believe in what they're
passion.
doing. Yeah.
I was talking to someone, it brings it back to mind, and I said, how come in Uganda we have a lot of very good people? They're good CEOs, they're good professionals, they're good accountants and so on. But but we don't see some of the changes we'd want to see. And it was actually, I think, Bishop Sack, and he said, it's passion. They lack the passion. You know, they do the thing correctly.
Right.
But if you're going to drive something, if you're going to really make a difference, you need passion. Rose, I don't need to talk to you about that. You know, the struggle you've been through.
Passion?
Yeah, exactly. You know, the stuff you've gone through in your life to be where you are today, and you haven't stopped, okay, requires passion.
It does, but I must say, as we wrap up this conversation, that I am also a product of having been around people like you who are good leaders, even without intentionally thinking they are leading.
Yeah.
That because I love to learn, you know, in surrounding myself with people. And I always remind you of this, you said this to me when I was still a teenager, you know, the company you keep is the company you become. You probably don't remember that. But it's one of the things that I've always taken away with me is the understanding that for me to grow and evolve as a leader, to sustain my passion, I have to surround myself with people, like-minded people, you know, and I'm not saying that I'm excluding a lot of people, but I have to be very intentional because I want to be able to be nurtured. I want people who give me life as well to be able to sustain that passion. And I think that's critically important. But we want to wrap this up. I thank you so very, very much. I recently posted on LinkedIn that the best work that you've done in Uganda is us. That people. You have the people.
I haven't looked that up yet. I must go on.
Really, you haven't?
No, I haven't been on LinkedIn.
That, you know, if I were to ask you what has been your best investment, I'm hoping your answer would be that you've invested in the people.
Oh, definitely.
That you have Uganda at your heart. And so I really want to thank you for that work. And hopefully we can continue talking about leadership and doing leadership.
Welcome. Thank
you very much. Thanks.